Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Talkative Thursdays series, a 4-episode podcast part of the Eurodesk Time to Move campaign. I will be your host, Stefanos, and today we have an exciting episode for you on Green Mobility and DiscoverEU. We will be diving into the world of green mobility and how young people are making a difference. Joining us are our two special guests, Victor Thévenet, an expert in the field of rail mobility, and Aurore Fierens, a former DiscoverEU participant. Thank you both for joining us here today. And so let's get started. Victor, I will start with you first. So can you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Sure. So I'm Victor. I'm 27, living in Paris, and I'm working for the European NGO Transport and Environment. So Transport and Environment is a environment, transport, climate NGO doing analysis, advocacy to decarbonize the transport sector in Europe, make it more efficient. It exists for 30 years, and I'm the person responsible for the rail policy at Transport and Environment. So what I'm doing is I'm working towards improving the rail sector in order that it's attractive for the passenger to use and then to use a low carbon mode of transport.
Great. Sounds really, really interesting. And Aurore, we're also thrilled to have you here with us. Can you also introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Thank you for having me. Yes. So I'm 20 years old. I live in Brussels and I'm studying bioengineering. I participated in DiscoverEU last summer, so 2022, and yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you very much. And so let's dig into the topic of green mobility. So Victor, green mobility I think is very, very much connected to rail mobility as well. So can you tell us from your point of view, what does green mobility mean to you?
Well, green mobility is a super large term. So I think we have to be more precise and not use too much the term green mobility. At TNE, we tend to say more like zero emission mobility, zero emission transport. That's our aim. It's to reach a zero emission transport sector while preserving the environment. If I just give an example, if you look at the shipping industry, they will say there are new boats running on LNG, liquefied natural gas, are green, but it's still like natural gas, fossil gas, so it's not green at all. So that's why I think we have to pay attention to the word we use, and that's why we at TNE we say more zero emissions, and here we are talking more about zero emission at the tile paps. So trains are not zero emission, but they are also they are very low carbon, and then are the greenest transport mode so far.
All right. So if I understood correctly, green mobility is the broader term, and then you have different means of transport. Let's say that they are either zero emission or low emission, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm really wondering if there are any legislations in Europe about green mobility and rail mobility in general, and if everything has been done in Europe about green mobility.
Yeah, I mean that's one area the EU is regulating, and TNE has been active for many years to campaign on the policies that the EU is setting up to green mobility. So, for example, we campaign to end the palm oil diesel to be used in transport. We also campaign to have a better carbon market for aviation to reduce the emission of aviation. And today we have what we call the European Green Deal, that is not only about mobility, but about everything linked to climate. And in this Green Deal, there is the smart and sustainable mobility strategy. There has been a lot of regulation on the other transport mode, but rail has been a bit left on the side.
And why do you think is that? Why was rail being left on the side?
There is a strong interest from member states to have it as a European topic. So you don't have really countries that are pushing for it to be put on the EU agenda. It's also because rail is already low carbon, and we will come back to that later. It's more easier to set up policies to decarbonize, to electrify, for example, cars, than to think, okay, we need to improve rail in order that people change the way they travel and shift from cars and planes to rail. So it's also more difficult.
And now, Aurore, I come to you as our young person here. So I'm very interested. What does green mobility, mean to you, and isn't something important to you?
Yes, it's important to me because also looking back on what happened this summer, between the floods in Central Europe and fires in the south, I think we cannot deny what human activities are doing to our planet. And I would really rather take like public transport on my back than a car alone. And if I have a choice, I would really rather travel by train than travel by flight, for sure. I think DiscoverEU really moved me forward for train, and I think I learned that we can travel by train and that it's not more difficult than travel by flight. So, yeah.
True. I get what you mean. Though I don't know from my perspective, because I come, from an island, from Cyprus, far away from mainland Europe. In our minds, we always have, plane as the mean, as a mean of transport to travel, but indeed for someone living in central Western Europe, I think it's easier to travel by train. Great. It would be nice if you can share with us the biggest challenges that green mobility, and more specifically rail mobility, is currently facing, right now in Europe.
I think the situation currently is we have really a big number of cars run in Europe, and a big number of trucks, and also a lot of planes. And we are just really used to those mode of transport in Europe. And then we need to think how to make those transport zero emission. And at TNE, we are producing analysis on how to decarbonize trucks, electrify cars, have zero emission planes with the use of what we call e-fuels. And that's something we need to work on. Like you say, for example, for islands like Cyprus, you will always need to have a plane. So let's work on that. Let's try to make really low emission planes. But what we see from regarding our calculation, we are not going to be able to keep the same number of cars, trucks, and planes in Europe and have them zero emission. So we will have to have them to have less of them. So that's the main challenge, and that it means that we will have to shift to rail or to travel less, and it forces us to reconsider the way we travel.
Do you have some, solutions to overcome these challenges? Because I don't know, in my mind, they seem almost, impossible. For example, to change how people think about travel and so on.
For example, regarding cars, we can regulate the cars to, for example, having smaller cars. For the past 10, 15, 20 years, there has been like a really an increase of SUV cars that are consuming more, that if you want to electrify them, you will have to use big batteries. So the EU can regulate that to find a way to stop this increase of the size of the cars that is slowing down the transition. I think I again read like a statistic saying that the increase of the size of the car has cancelled all the benefits of electrification of cars so far. So all the cars we have electrified, it was a bit useless because on the other side, the size of the cars have increased. And if like SUV were to be a country, it will be in terms of emission, it will be the 7th biggest country in the world in terms of emission. SUVs are something that only people with high revenues buy. So that's another challenge. We always have to think about how to make it fair for everybody. We have to make rail the most attractive option for people to use. And what people tell me the most often is like it's expensive to use. So we have to work on how to make it cheaper. That's something we are trying to work at TNE. We published a report on how to make, for example, night trains cheaper. We have seen also good example in Germany and Spain with cheap train tickets. We can work also on the cost of using the tracks, what we call the tolls, basically, to use the tracks to reduce them. Then it's cheaper to take a train. Aviation has many advantages, tax advantages that rail does not have, and we could we could at the same time increase the price of aviation and decrease the price of train.
Okay, so I see there are solutions to all the challenges, and I guess what's stopping us from implementing those solutions, it's the politicians. They need to take decisions on them, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need some courageous decision to be made. One example, aviation doesn't pay taxes on its energy, on kerosene. The thing is, it's like when you have to modify such a thing on taxes at EU level, you need every member state to agree. So that's why it's also difficult, because you need everybody to agree, and so you need the politicians to act, but you also need I think the industry. You also need the rail operators to come up with good offers, for example, for families. Try to find a way to have a cheaper trains, cheaper journeys for people, for especially families, because it costs a lot for them.
And you mentioned earlier that we need to make rail and trains more attractive. How should we encourage young people to use sustainable mobility, travel, and rail?
But first, I want to remind like a statistics. It's Greenpeace just released that rail is on average twice more expensive than aviation in Europe. They look at more than 100 connections around Europe, and even on some connection, it was 20 to 30 times more expensive. So there is really something to do. So as I said, young people, they have a limited budget. We have a limited budget. So we need something attractive in terms of pricing. Into DiscoverEU is great, but it could be improved.
Travel with planes, with trains, with cars. And I'm really curious to hear both of you on what you think about this. So, Victor, maybe you can start. I'm sure you through your work you have some ideas on that.
I think there is a lot of work to be done on producing narratives that will help the rail sector to grow and give the motivation and the wish of people to board on a train. It's true that often when we advertise travel, it's often a plane that is shown. It's often also on website, booking platform. They will first show the air option first, and then will come the rail option. So there is a lot of work to do on that, on the narrative, on the way we present the different transport mode to put in the first place the green zero emission transport mode.
And what do you think, Aurore, about this travel communication narrative?
I don't know. I think we should more inform people and young people, especially, about the impact of each travel means, because I think there's like many people don't know how much it's more ecological to take a train rather than a plane, and I think it's important to inform.
What's the best tool to inform young people about the impact? Like from your perspective, what will work for you, for example?
Social media.
Social media.
I think there's a lot. Like we could say TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I mean, there's a lot, and there would be a lot of many like ways to do it. Even like podcasts, like today, or videos, or little photos. I think that would work.
All right, thank you. So I'm really curious if airports or train stations, have a role when it comes to young people choosing, their way of traveling. For example, I don't know, some people they might prefer the airport because it has more shops inside, no, while the train station is more old, let's say. Is it something that can impact somebody's decision? I don't know, Victor, we can start with you.
Well, I think the train station has a lot of advantage already. It's often really easier to reach the train station than the airport, and cheaper because sometimes you have to pay an extra cost to reach the airport. Sometimes you don't even have a subway connection to the airport. But I think train station should it's not because it's better than airport that they should take it for granted. They should also improve the customer experience there. And I think there is a lot of improvement margin when it comes to travel with night trains. For example, in France, in Paris, and in Toulouse, you have a space for with a shower in the station, which is really clean, really nice. And this will help simply improve the travel experience and improve the possibility, help some people shift to night trains because they will know they will have a possibility to take a shower when they arrive. But they only do it for people traveling first class. So that's why I think they could do it for everybody, and it could be also in more train stations around Europe.
Great. And Aurora?
I think some train station could have like a more secure feeling, because sometimes the choice is also like the security around the infrastructure. Like in Brussels, we have some train station that just doesn't feel secure, and that could also influence in the choice.
From my perspective, I usually try as well to avoid those train stations because they are considered, not to be safe. While the airport, it's always safe because you pass through so many securities. There are police officers there, so I understand what you mean about that. Now let's dig a bit into the topic of DiscoverEU. So Aurora, I will start with you since you are a former DiscoverEU participant, and if you can tell us why have you decided to apply to DiscoverEU?
It was for the experience. Having the opportunity to travel all around Europe for I mean, we were offered train tickets, 7 train tickets, like 7 days of train tickets. It was, for me, it was really, I wanted to travel around Europe. I wanted to discover more about Europe, and that's why I applied.
And which countries have you visited during those 7 days?
We visited mainly capital city of countries, but we did Germany, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, Sweden, and Denmark. It was amazing. We met so many great people. We learned so much about every country we went through, every city we went through. We visited so many things, and like cultural things, but also like we tasted some traditional recipes. We had some amazing experience. So yeah, it was really a learning experience in all point of views.
Yeah, it seems you really enjoyed, and it was a once in a lifetime opportunity from
Yeah,
what I'm hearing.
yeah, it was really a once in a lifetime experience.
Victor, what do you think about Discover You?
I mean, DiscoverEU, I think it's great. It's one of the things the EU is doing that is really showing that the EU is working for the people, for the citizens, for the young, because it's like when the EU ended roaming charges, when we were able to call without paying a really expensive fees all around Europe. It's or with a single charger also. Those are the type of initiative that that give like some popularity to the EU because EU is often criticized to be far from citizens. So I think it's great they are doing it for, and I hope in the future they will expand it that many more people can travel. That there will be maybe a Discover EU for families because, as I said, for families when you have 1 to 3 children, you always choose a car because it's too expensive to travel by rail. So that would be great to have this for families, and also maybe for people with low income because they also just people that can actually don't go on vacation because still many people don't go on vacation. So I think I hope it will be expanded.
Yeah, and Discovery You, it was so far a huge success for the European Commission in general, because every time the application process is open, you have hundreds and hundreds of people that they are trying to get the precious rail pass to travel around Europe. But Discovery U is only one learning mobility program of the European Commission, and I'm really wondering if there is a connection between green mobility, rail mobility, and other learning programs such as Erasmus Plus or the European Solidarity Corps. And I want to hear from your perspective if somehow there is this relationship between them.
I think the main relation is opening minds, because every of those programs have like learning yeah, the aim of those programs is opening minds and learning about us and about Europe, and probably also about how can we travel in Europe.
And Victor, what do you think? Is there any room for rail mobility and other programs?
What would be great is like in the next Erasmus Plus budget, they give a Discovery EU, like a sort of a Discovery EU ticket to every student going on Erasmus, or maybe or like something to make sure when they go to their country, they travel by rail, and when they come back. to their country of study. That will be, I think that will be to create a great link between Green Mobility and Erasmus Plus will be that. Then Erasmus Plus is a really wide framework now. So you also have some specific Erasmus Plus program where you can do project around mobility and low carbon, zero emission mobility.
This is a really nice suggestion. Actually, it will really boost the way young people will use the rail if they gave to to every student that goes abroad to a university in another country train tickets, for example. That would. Okay, but yeah, it's a very, very nice idea. Wow. Well, I don't know. Let's hope member states, the European Commission hears about this solution. And Aurore, let's come a bit back to your DiscoverEU journey. Did you encounter any challenges or barriers during your travels?
Yeah, just as Victor asked me, we had some difficulties traveling by train in Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. So we did it by bus, and between Estonia and Finland, we were by boat, and the same between Finland and Sweden. We had a little problem, but it was a bit of our fault too, and we learned to find a way to solve it. It was also a part of the learning experience to find solutions. So.
Can you give us some practical tips on how young people can travel more sustainably?
Well, we just talked about it, but take trains. Small things, just like taking your own bottle of water, reusable bottle of water when traveling, is a little step, but it's, I think, something necessary too. And having like a Tupperware when traveling, those are like small small thing that we can do while traveling.
And Victor, what do you think?
So I can advise a few websites where you can find really good information on how to travel cross-border in Europe. So there is a website called Man in the Seat 61, which is very, very up-to-date and run by an Englishman that is traveling cross-border in Europe a lot. The second website I will advise is called Rail CC. That is also great at generating rail journey options. And more recently, I will suggest another one, which is quite active on social media, called, but it's only in French. It's called Hourail, H-O-U-N-I, where it's they're also suggesting cross-border trip by rail in Europe.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you both for those amazing tips. I'm sure our young audience will be helpful to them. And I want to ask you, what advice would you give to other young people, who are interested in participating in DiscoverEU in the future?
Be confident, because there's always a solution, and there will be problems because in 1 month not everything can go just the way you expected, but there is always a solution, and really do not hesitate. It's a great experience. It's a one in a lifetime experience, and it's really worth living it. Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. And we are slowly moving towards the end of this episode. And before we move on to the trivia game, I want to ask both of you if you have any final thoughts or messages you would like to share about the importance of green mobility and the impact it can have on our future. Maybe Victor, we can start with you.
Every effort matters, so that's why it's as I said, like maybe try to sometimes travel for longer or closer to your place, then it will allow you to have a smaller carbon impact. Travel is still really important to, as I said, or to open the minds of people. So we need to keep on traveling. But think about it's great if you're able to think on how you can redesign your travels, and also raise also your voice to ask for change to the decision makers, to the right companies, to allow us to travel with more trains, more low carbon transport.
I personally really liked to travel by train because it's like you really take the time to go through the landscape, and you have the time to like really more experience a country when traveling by train, because you stop in some little places, you have the time to really look at the landscape. And I think we should also in our society learn to move maybe less quickly, maybe less far away, but to take the time to do it.
Great, amazing. We've come to the end, but before we'll play a small trivia game. So it's a way to end the podcast in a fun way. So how it goes is that I will test you on your knowledge of green mobility. And here how it works. I will ask you a series of true or false green mobility themed questions to each one of you. And if you answer correctly, you get 1 point. And the person with the most points at the end of the game is the winner. Okay. Aurore, we will start with you first.
Yes,
So,
let's go.
Electric scooters are more environmentally friendly than public transport. Is it true or false?
I think it's false.
You are correct. It's false.
Yeah.
Maybe Victor, maybe you know why, but the explanation I found here is that in 2019, some researchers at the University of North Carolina found that electric scooters emit more pollutants per mile per passenger than bus, than electric bicycle and a standard bicycle. I don't know if it's true or not, but you can.
What I know is like in Paris, the electric scooter had a 3 month lifespan. So this was the reason why it was not ecological, because it was just not really. It didn't last. It was a lot of waste.
Wow, okay, it's a lot of waste then, like a lot. All right, so it means, Aurore, you have 1 point so far.
Yay.
And then let's move to you, Victor. So DiscoverEU was launched in 2017. True or false?
I will say true.
It is false. It was launched in 2018. So it means Aurore is in the lead for now. And I come back to you, Aurore. So Leipzig-Hopanow is the biggest railway station in Europe in terms of floor area. True or false?
I would say it's false.
It is true, actually. It is the biggest railway station, and it is 83,460 square meters. So it's
Wow.
1,670 times bigger than my apartment in Brussels. Okay, then Victor, I'm coming to you for the second question. So the European Green Deal ensures that there will be no net emissions of greenhouse gases by 2070?
Of course.
That's right. It's until
2050.
2050. I was sure that you knew this one. Then so far it's a tie with 1 point each. And I come back to you, Aurore, for your last question. So the bicycle was initially called the velocipede.
It's true.
Yes, it's true actually. You are correct. So you have 2 points now, and then let's move to you, Victor. 2021 was declared as the European Year of Rail.
That's true.
That is true, yes. So now you have both 2 points, which means I have one last question for Aurore. Aurore, if you find this question, it means you are the winner. If you don't,
Okay.
it means Victor is the winner. Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
So, according to Eurostat, in 2021, less than 100 billion people travel by rail.
That should be false, I think. It makes a lot of people.
It is false, actually. It's more than 200 billion people that travel by rail in 2021, which means you are the winner of the True or False trivia game. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats.
You are more than welcome to pass by our office here in Brussels, and we'll give you a bag of Eurodesk goodies.
Thank you. Yeah, I will.
Then it's time to close this podcast. So that's all for today. A big thanks to both of you, Victor and Aurore, for sharing your insights and experiences with us. And I really hope this podcast has inspired our audience, young people, to take a closer look at green mobility and discover the opportunity it holds. And remember, it's time to move towards a greener future. So we hope our audience start thinking about traveling in a more sustainable way. And as always, stay tuned for more exciting episodes of the Talkative Thursdays. Thank you very much, both, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you very much.